It was a bright, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13.
You know, I've read a lot of books, and that might be one of the most unsettling opening lines ever written.
It is.
It sounds totally normal for a split second, and then 13. Clocks don't do that. You're immediately thrown off balance.
Which is exactly where George Orwell wants you. He wants you disoriented from the very first sentence. He wants you to feel that something fundamental has just broken.
And today, we are diving deep into that broken world. We're unpacking George Orwell's 1984. And look, I know everyone knows the buzzwords Big Brother, Thought Police, Orwellian.
We use them all the time.
All the time. But today, I want to get past the memes and actually, walk through the hallways of Victory Mansions. I want to smell the boiled cabbage.
And that smell is so important. It's gritty. It's real. This isn't just some sci-fi story about a far-off future. It's a manual on power. We're not just looking at the plot. We're looking at the mechanism, how a government can dismantle truth, memory, even love to maintain total control. So, okay, set the scene for us. We're in London, but it's not the London we know. It's Airstrip 1, part of this massive superstate called Oceania.
Right. And the whole feel of it isn't sleek and high-tech. It's decaying. It's just dusty. Winston Smith, our protagonist, he's 39, frail, and he's got this awful varicose ulcer on his ankle. He has to drag himself up 7 flights of stairs because the electricity is cut off during the day.
For an economy drive. For Hate Week, of course.
Of course. The government is constantly preparing for this festival of hate, while its citizens live in, well, squalor. But inside the apartment, the squalor doesn't even matter because you're never actually alone. You have the telescreen.
That dull mirror on the wall, it's just droning on about pig iron production figures, but the kicker is you can't turn it off.
You can dim it, but you can never, ever silence it. And it receives and transmits simultaneously.
This is the part that just terrifies me. It's not just a TV, it's a camera.
And the microphone, yeah.
It creates this panopticon effect.
Right.
Okay, hang on. Unpack panopticon for us.
It's an old concept, actually, for a prison design. The idea is you have a central guard tower that can see into every single cell, but the prisoners can't see into the tower. So you never know if you're being watched at any specific moment.
So you have to act like you're always being watched.
Exactly. You end up policing yourself.
That sounds absolutely exhausting. You'd have to constantly monitor your own face. A face crime, right?
Precisely. A nervous tick, a look of surprise when a victory is announced, that could get you vaporized. And it's not just the screen. It's your neighbors. It's your own children.
Oh, God. The Parsons family. Winston's neighbors. The dad is this sweaty, sort of eager-to-please guy, but his kids are just little monsters. They're dressed up in the spy's uniform, running around the apartment shouting, "Traitor!" and "Thought criminal" at Winston.
And Parsons is proud of them. He's proud that his 7-year-old listens at keyholes. The party has successfully destroyed the family by turning children into surveillance devices against their own parents.
So you're safe nowhere. Not at home, not with your family. But let's look outside for a minute. Winston looked out his window, and he sees the 4 ministries that run the government. And the names are just, talk about a branding problem.
It's not a problem. It's a deliberate paradox. You've got the Ministry of Truth, Minitru, which handles news and entertainment.
So lies.
Then there's the Ministry of Peace, Minipax,
Yeah.
which oversees the perpetual war, the Ministry of Plenty, which manages the economy,
Meaning rationing and starvation.
and finally, the Ministry of Love, Mini-Love.
The scary one. No windows, surrounded by barbed wire. It maintains law and order.
Through torture and brainwashing. But I want to pause on the Ministry of Peace for a second, because this is a huge insight people often miss. Why is the war perpetual? Why do they never win it?
Yeah, they're always fighting Eurasia or Eastasia. It never ends.
Orwell explains that the primary aim of modern warfare isn't to conquer territory. It's to use up the products of the machine without raising the standard of living. If you have a surplus of goods, toasters, shoes, cars, the population gets comfortable.
They get educated, they get time to think.
And if they think, they realize they don't need the party. So you build huge floating fortresses and you just sink them. You burn up surplus labor in a war that isn't meant to be won. It's meant to be continuous. That keeps people terrified and on the brink of starvation, and it keeps a whole hierarchy in place.
That is incredibly cynical, and it makes way too much sense. So that's the macro view. But let's zoom in on Winston's day job at the Ministry of Truth, because this is where the truth part gets actively manipulated. He's in the records department.
Right. His job is literally to reconstruct the past. He gets these little slips of paper with instructions to rectify old news articles.
Rectify. Such a polite bureaucratic word for just lying.
It is. Let's say Big Brother made a speech last week predicting there would be no reduction in the chocolate ration.
Which, by the way, feels very real. It's like when a candy bar gets smaller but the price stays the same, and they call it fun size.
It's exactly that, but with legal stakes. So the chocolate ration is reduced from 30 grams to 20. Winston's job is to go back, find the old speech, and rewrite it so Big Brother actually predicted the reduction.
So he was never wrong.
Never wrong. Then the original document gets destroyed.
Drop down the memory hole.
And once that's done, the lie becomes the truth. There is no external record to prove otherwise. As the party slogan goes, who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past.
My favorite example of this is Comrade Ogilvy. Winston has to rewrite a speech where Big Brother praised someone who, oops, turned out to be a traitor. So Winston needs a replacement hero on the fly.
Right. You can't use a real person, so he just invents one. Comrade Ogilvy.
And he goes all in. He gives this guy this whole backstory. Refused all toys except a drum and a submachine gun at age 6. Designed a new kind of hand grenade at 19. Took a vow of celibacy.
And then died heroically in battle, of course. Winston writes this whole thing up. And within an hour, Comrade Ogilvy, who didn't exist when Winston woke up that morning, is now a historical fact. He's as real as Charlemagne or Caesar.
It really shows that truth in Oceania isn't objective at all. It's just whatever the party says it is today. Which brings us to the mental gymnastics you need to survive this. Doublethink.
This is a core concept.
Yeah.
Doublethink is. It's the power of holding two contradictory beliefs in your mind at the same time and accepting both of them.
It sounds like cognitive dissonance on steroids.
It's worse because it has to be both conscious and unconscious. Take the war. Oceania is at war with Eurasia and allied with Eustasia. Now, Winston knows, he remembers, that 4 years ago it was the complete reverse. But officially, that change never happened. Oceania has always been at war with Eurasia.
So to be a good party member, you have to genuinely believe the new lie, even while you might be the person rewriting the history books to create it?
Yes. You have to consciously choose to be unconscious of the contradiction. If you didn't, you'd go insane. Or worse, you'd be a thought criminal.
And while Winston is struggling to keep his brain split in two, there are people actively trying to shrink the brain. We have to talk about Syme.
Syme is a fascinating character. He's a philologist working on the 11th edition of the Newspeak Dictionary. He's a smart guy.
Too smart.
Way too smart. He's arguably the only person Winston talks to who really understands what's happening. He explains that the whole point of Newspeak isn't to invent new words, it's to destroy them.
Right.
He asks Winston, why do we even need a word like bad? It's just the opposite of good. So ungood works perfectly. If you want something stronger, plus good, stronger still. Double plus good.
It sounds like an efficiency thing, but it's actually a cage.
It's a lobotomy for the language. Syme's argument is that if you remove the words to express rebellious thoughts, then thought crime becomes literally impossible. You can't want freedom if the very concept of freedom doesn't exist anymore.
That's horrifying. And Winston looks at Syme, who is so enthusiastic about all this destruction, and he just thinks, one of these days you are going to get vaporized.
Because Syme sees the strings. He understands the system too well. The party doesn't want understanding. They want blind obedience. They want duck speak. People who just quack out the correct slogans without their brain even engaging.
And spoiler alert, Winston is right. Later in the book, Syme just vanishes. His name is taken off the chess committee list. He becomes an unperson. He never existed.
And this total erasure is what pushes Winston toward his own rebellion. It starts small. He buys a notebook.
A creamy, blank book from a junk shop. He uses an old-fashioned pen with a nib, and he sits in this tiny alcove in his apartment where the telescreen can't quite see him, little glitch in the architecture, and he starts to write.
And the physical act of writing is painful for him. His hand cramps up. He's so used to dictating everything into a machine.
Yeah.
But the mental release is just explosive. He writes April 4th, 1984.
Even though he's not even sure that's the right date, and then he just starts panic writing. And what comes out is, down with Big Brother, down with Big Brother. Over and over.
He stares at it, and he realizes thought crime does not entail death. Thought crime is death. In his mind, in that moment, he's already a corpse. He has committed the one unforgivable sin of having a private thought.
But he craves connection. He needs to know he's not the only one going crazy. And he fixates on this guy, O'Brien, an inner party member.
This happens during the 2 minutes 8. Which, by the way, is a terrifying scene. The party gathers everyone to just scream at a screen, showing Emmanuel Goldstein, the ultimate traitor. It's primal. People are throwing things. They're weeping, turning purple with rage.
It sounds like a weaponized Twitter mob.
It's exactly that channeled aggression. But in the middle of this frenzy, Winston locks eyes with O'Brien. And for just a split second, he feels this connection. He believes O'Brien is thinking, I am with you. I know exactly what you're feeling.
It's a total projection, right? Winston has no actual proof.
None whatsoever. But he's desperate. However, if O'Brien is his intellectual hope, Winston looks for political hope somewhere else entirely. He writes in his diary, if there is hope, it lies in the proles.
The proles, the proletariat, the 85% of the population who are just ignored.
The party doesn't really care about them because they don't see them as fully human. Proles and animals are free, the saying goes. They aren't under heavy surveillance. They aren't indoctrinated. They're just kept sedated with cheap beer, silly songs, and the lottery.
And Winston thinks that because they have the numbers, they could just shake the party off like a horse shaking off flies. But there's this one scene that just breaks his heart. He goes to a pub to talk to an old prole. He wants to know about the past before the revolution. Were the capitalists really these evil men in top hats?
And the old man, he just talks about the price of a pint of beer, or how someone pushed him once. He has memories, but they're rubbish, fragments without any context.
It's so frustrating for Winston. He realizes the party has successfully destroyed the ability to understand history, not just the history itself.
And that's the paradox. Until they become conscious, they will never rebel, and until after they have rebelled, they cannot become conscious.
So the mind is trapped, history is dead, but then the story pivots. We get the rebellion of the body. We have to talk about Julia.
The girl with the dark hair.
At first, Winston hates her guts. He sees her wearing this scarlet sash, the uniform of the Junior Anti-Sex League.
Which is fantastic branding, by the way.
Worst club ever. He thinks she's a spy. He actually has fantasies of bashing her head in with a cobblestone. That's how messed up his mind is. But then she falls in the corridor at work. He helps her up. And as he does, she slips a tiny folded note into his hand.
Winston goes back to his cubicle, just terrified. He thinks it's a death warrant from the thought police. He waits for hours to open it, and when he finally does, in this clumsy handwriting, it just says, I love you.
It's such a bombshell. In a world of organized hate, I love you is a revolutionary act.
It cuts through all the ideology. They manage to arrange a meeting out in the countryside, the Golden Country.
And this scene is so jarringly beautiful compared to the dust and cabbage of London. It's a pasture. There are elm trees.
Yeah.
And there's this bird.
A thrush. The thrush is key. Yeah. It lands on a branch near them, and it just sings. And Winston is mesmerized by it. He's trying to figure out who the bird is singing for. Is it for a mate? Is it for them? No, it's just singing.
Beauty without a purpose. That's something the party can't understand or control.
Exactly. And then Julia takes charge. She rips off that scarlet anti-sex sash and just flings it away. She produces some black market chocolate reel stuff, dark and shiny, and they have sex.
But Winston's reaction isn't just, yay, sex. He says, I hate purity. I hate goodness. I want everyone to be corrupt to the bones. Why is corruption a good thing here?
Because the party uses sexual privation as a battery. If you suppress the sex drive, that energy gets turned into hysteria and war fever and leader worship. It's simple hydraulics. So having a private, happy, personal sexual encounter is a direct act of insurrection.
It's a political blow against Big Brother.
Right. Julia puts it perfectly later on. She says, all this marching up and down and cheering is simply sex gone sour.
And Julia is such a great foil for Winston. Winston wants to understand the philosophy of the party. He needs to know why. Julia. She works in Pornisec, producing cheap smut for the proles, so she knows it's all fake. She doesn't care about the doctrine. She just wants to break the rules to have a good time.
She's a rebel from the waist downwards, as Winston calls her. She falls asleep when he tries to read the forbidden history book to her. But she brings him back to life. But the woods aren't safe enough. They need a sanctuary.
So they rent a room above that junk shop for Mr. Charrington. And this room, it becomes their little universe.
It's a pocket of the past. It has a mahogany bed, a gate-leg table, an old clock, and no telescreen.
Or so they think, but the domesticity is what gets to me. Julia brings real sugar, white bread, and jam. And real coffee. The smell of that roasting coffee fills the room, and Winston is just transported back to his childhood.
And Julia transforms, too. She puts on makeup. She got on the black market. She wears scent. Winston has never seen a woman in the party wear makeup. In that room, she stops being a comrade and becomes a woman.
But the horror is always there, right? Creeping in at the edges, there's the rat.
Yes, a rat pokes its head out of the wainscoting. Winston freaks out. He has a deep phobia of rats. It's his absolute worst nightmare. Julie just throws a shoe at it. She's practical. She says, oh, the rats in the parole quarters, they attack the children all the time.
Which is just a grim detail. But Winston says something like, it's too old a room for rats. And Julia laughs and says, there's no such thing as a room without rats. That feels like foreshadowing.
Heavy foreshadowing.
Yeah,
Just like the paperweight.
the glass paperweight with the coral inside. Winston buys it because it's beautiful and totally useless.
He stares into it, and he feels like the glass arch is the sky. And he and Julia are the tiny piece of coral inside. A little world frozen in time. Fixed in a sort of eternity, he calls it.
But they're not fixed. They're on borrowed time. There's that old nursery rhyme they keep trying to remember. Oranges and lemons, say the bells of St. Clement's.
Mr. Charrington teaches him the first bit. Julian knows a little more. They're trying to piece together the lost churches of London. But the ending is the real kicker. Here comes a candle to light you to bed, and here comes a chopper to chop off your head.
They're reciting their own execution warrant, and they don't even know it.
Oh, Winston knows. Deep down, he knows. He looks at the room, at the paperweight, at Julia, and he just says, we are the dead.
And Julia, who is so full of life and coffee and chocolate, she says, we're not dead yet.
But Winston is right. In the logic of Oceania, the moment you reclaimed your own humanity, you forfeited your life.
So let's try and land this. We've got this terrifying system, the erasure of truth, the rebellion of love, and the inevitability of, the boot stamping on a human face forever. What is the takeaway for us sitting here today?
I think the most chilling part of 1984 isn't the surveillance itself. It's what the surveillance does to your sense of self. Winston feels he is dead because to be authentic in a world built on lies is basically suicide.
It forces a question on all of us then. In a world where our data is mined, our location is tracked, our online history can be edited, are we always performing for an audience we can't see?
Exactly. If you knew every text, every search, every private conversation was being watched by a power that demanded total allegiance, would you still be you? Or would you just become a performance of a good citizen?
That is a haunting thought. Winston Smith tried to be real, and he paid for it with his own mind.
And the tragedy is, by the end, he loves Big Brother. The system didn't just kill him, it converted him.
Well, on that cheerful note, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into The Nightmare of Oceania. It's a book that unfortunately never really stops being relevant.
Keep thinking. And maybe write it down on paper, just in case.